room. Thank you for your thoughtful presentations. I was in a room and I know it was going by very fast, but it was obvious to me that you all have done your research about these various diseases and were very creative in how you were choosing to present. So I just wanted to take a few minutes here to ask any post-reflection questions, as in, what information did you feel was really well covered? What would you feel like needs to be followed up on? And you could imagine if you were a CHOP attendee in answering that question. What challenges did you face when you were making this presentation? And then if you have any questions about CHOP, feel free to ask or throw them in the chat. Again, our virtual norm is to raise hands, and you can find that in the participants tab. There should be a button that says raise hands. Noah.
So I'll say something that our group had trouble with was just designing a handout. Like we weren't very like none of us were very good artists, so it was kind of difficult to like come up with something that would entice people to want to read it and kind of like give the information in a clear way, but still be like aesthetically pleasing.
I recognize that. I only gave you maybe 20 minutes to research and put together a presentation, but you can imagine what challenges peer educators have in their communities where they not only have to present this information, but maybe the population they're working with can't read or write. And so they have to get creative in how they visually display this information. Awesome. Can I hear from two more people? Two more brave souls. Adam.
I had a question like for CHOP, what specifically like in our fundraising goes towards CHOP? That's something cool to learn about.
You know what? You ask a great question, and that's a perfect segue into my next slide. So if you have any more questions, again, the chat is always open, but I'm going to move on to an excerpt from the CHOP budget. This is not this year's budget. Again, coronavirus threw off a lot of different things. It's an older year's budget, but it really shows some of the things that are funding funds. So again, well, if you look at the bottom right, you see a $10,000 budget. That is our fundraising goal each year in order to make sure CHOP operates. That funding provides a lot of different things. So transportation for SAW staff to visit the workshop communities in POPRA. There's also the costs of training the peer educators, and they hold peer educator trainings about twice a year. And they also, at each of these workshops, they not only pay like the per diem for a participant, which is designed to cover the cost of them missing work to attend this workshop. Even though they're held on Saturdays, they might be foregoing a day's worth of wages. So participants receive money. They also receive some supplies, either medicines or other things, but also food. And we provide lunch at these workshops as well. So if you have any questions about this budget, this is something we can dive into later in partnerships presentations. So if that's something you're interested in, please let me know. Finally, I want to end with a quick update about a Skype call or a Zoom call that we had with our partner organization last Thursday. So if you saw in the GroupMe, Brooke has uploaded all of that video to YouTube if you want to catch up on it, but I have some highlights here just to touch on briefly. We spoke with Anton Lin, for short, we call him ATL. He's our primary contact at SAW, and he is a university student, actually. He is about to graduate from Chiang Mai University. He's a social sciences student there, and from an online university that he's taking a few classes in as well. we asked him a lot of questions. One of them was about coronavirus and the current pandemic state in Thailand. He said that in Thailand, the pandemic is under control, but in Myanmar, it's skyrocketing, in that there are a lot of infections and maybe perhaps a second wave. They've closed the border in order to prevent its spread into Thailand, which means even the legal crossing where there's a bridge in between Mae Sot, that is closed, but also the illegal crossings where people would take boats across the river, that's not allowed either. SAW has a migrant learning center that would stay open this year because they are able to comply with the coronavirus restrictions in Thailand. But the future of that migrant learning center is uncertain because they've run out of funders or grants in order to keep the operations afloat. So this might be the last year of the SAW Migrant Learning Center, from what they feel to tell us. As it relates to CHOP, which is what we were talking about today, CHOP workshops are still ongoing, and ATL is performing monitoring and evaluation. He's talking with some of those peer educators, and we'll be talking with him in the next few weeks to talk about the future of our CHOP project. And finally, there will be an opportunity later this semester to interact with students from SAW. Those English conversations were something we started over the summer. The virtual Grow Trip did that, and we wanted to continue that into the semester. So keep an eye out for when we decide to schedule that. It will probably be in the mornings at like 8:30 in the morning because it's evening time in Thailand. And with that, a big sigh of relief. You've made it through a partnerships presentation. I thank you all for your participation, for bearing with us and these activities for so long. And I'll turn it over to Maria for our collective breath.
All right. So this is something that we do at the end of every chapter meeting. It's just a way to kind of reflect on the major ideas or things that we learned today. So I invite you to drop something that you learned in the chat, or if anyone has a quote that they want to share that we could take a collective breath on. Right now I just see a lot of chat about beans. Well, okay, if no one has anything like right off the top of their head, that's okay. Collective breath quote suggestion, spill the beans. I like that. I'm also going to just throw out this little phrase that we hear a lot in GlowMed, that local health is global health. And I know a lot of you were researching things locally and also globally. So just a reminder that local health is global health. And with that, I invite you to unmute yourself so that we can all feel like we're in a room together. And then you can go ahead and soften your gaze or close your eyes and take a deep breath in and exhale. I hope that you have an awesome week. We have just a few more updates before you head out. We will be putting this recording on our YouTube channel. So again, if you don't want to be featured in that, please send Shaylin and I a private message and we will censor you out of it. Don't forget to fill out that Grow feedback form that we have sent in the GroupMe, but we will also send in the recap email. Shaylin and I are still taking Coffee with Co-Press meetings. So if you want to have a one-on-one, shoot us an email. If you want to join a committee and weren't able to today, we will also be sending out that committee form. But if you have any questions about that, don't hesitate to reach out. And then lastly, we will be having an eBoard meeting at 8 today. That is open to any chapter member who wants to stick around. You are more than welcome to share your ideas at our eBoard meetings, or if you have time and want to hear what we're going to talk about, it's open to everyone every week. And very lastly, sorry, long list of things. Could you please add a plus or a delta in the chat for our meeting feedback today? So this is something new that we're going to try out. A plus is something that you liked and enjoyed, and a delta is something that we can improve upon for future meetings. Your feedback is really important to us, so if you could just drop that in the chat before you head out, then that is all.
as you fill that out and provide that feedback, which I really appreciate, I'm going to play some tunes and have a great evening, everyone.
Bye, everyone. As soon as you're done filling it out.